In this whole eternal history, and we have to use the word eternal because we are speaking in the English. And of course, we are speaking in the English because we have to reach to certain viewers, those who are misguided, misadventured, and not having the sense of this cultural heritage of this country. So we are speaking in that language. But it's a very poor language.
You are saying English is a poor language. Or maybe you want to say that it is highly inadequate in a way.
I'm sorry, but I believe that English is not inadequate, it's a poor language. There is a whole difference in English itself being a poor or being inadequate. You are speaking in a very, what you can call a very sophisticated term. I want to be as bare as possible. And English is a very poor language. In that poor language, we are trying to give a meaning to certain things. We are trying to get the synonyms of it. And that's where the whole problem begins. The whole problem of this, the intellectual century of this country, is the problem of language. Because we have been trying to find meaning, whether it was Miller, it was anybody else, they were trying to find meaning of those greatest Sanskrit words, the greatest history of our language, the grammar of our language, through a very poor language. And in that poor language, we have not reached the meaning that really this country's language wanted to give in terms of Sanskrit.
Forgive me to interrupt here, but English has a history of a couple of thousands of years. How can it be so poor? I mean, as far as what you are saying, how English can be so poor? Of course, there are people, there are experts who have already said that the meaning is lost in translation. It may happen in terms of any language, but English happens to be a language with a history of a couple of thousand years, isn't it?
Yeah, it has a history of a couple of thousands of years, and it's nowhere disrespect to a language. But if we don't speak the truth, we'll be keep lingering on to something and trying to achieve meaning of something which may not exist. You are right that a lot of meanings get lost in language, but there are certain things that cannot be translated. You cannot translate pranam. So good morning, good evening, bonjour, bonsoir. You cannot translate it. It's impossible. So if you still want to say pranam, you will have to say pranam, because pranam is a beautiful word that cannot be translated. Actually, interestingly, I must say what pranam means. That we call prana. In our whole holistic tradition, there is a word called prana. Prana is our the being of us, the truth. Let's call it truth. So when we say pranam, we say that the prana of yours and prana of mine, we both become equal through our vibration. That's why prana and ayam. Ayam is a vibration. So we become so humble that let us seek the unity between us, and that's what the pranama is. It cannot be good morning or good evening. We have a very different word for good morning, good evening, good afternoon, but pranam is more than that. When we talk, let's get back to the language. English has a history of couple of thousands of years, maybe more, maybe couple of hundred more. But we have to understand what we meant by language, how a language came into our being, how language came into this universe. What happened with the Sanskrit? And it has happened a lot with the Sanskrit and the Prakrit. It has not happened same in the Hindustani, but it has happened with the Sanskrit, with Tamil, with all the southern language of this country, as well as Prakrit. There is a very interesting story from Indian history, Indian tradition, that Panini, the great grammarian, when he had to define a word for something, a sense, a feeling, he had to go in deeper into meditation. While meditating, he acknowledged from this universe that that particular perception or meaning would come with what sort of alphabet, and with the mixing of those alphabet, a word came into being. that was just not a mere any hubbub. It was a science of language. And Sanskrit got millions of years. And when I say millions of years, there has been many research done. Even Max Muller himself, who was great, what you can say, I mean, still we have Max Muller Bhavan in this country, we have Max Muller Road in this country, and he was the one person who actually wanted to kill this country's heritage. Even he had to say at one point that this language cannot be just mere 2000 year old or 2000, 3000 years old, because the way grammar has come, it must take tens of thousands of years to come into that structure. It's science. So we got time.
And time has helped evolve Sanskrit in the way it has.
Yes, of course. And that's why each word was decided, decoded, not by an individual. There were groups of people working on the same context, and then they came together and found a word for certain special things that we wanted to translate. That's how the words of all the Sanskrit have appeared. That's why in Sanskrit there is no problem, there is no confusion, and Sanskrit is a language that gives multiple meanings, but each meaning has a special structure where it goes, and that's what Sanskrit is. Sanskrit has been still alive, and our scriptures were written in that language because it has that importance.